My guest tonight was considered one of the lucky ones after being born with a debilitating bone condition in her right leg due to the use of the herbicide 2,4,5-T in the 70s in Billawheeler here in Queensland, where she grew up with her family. At the age of 26, after a lifetime of pain, she made the decision to have her leg amputated, and she's since gone ahead in leaps and bounds, leaving a trail of prosthetic limbs behind her. Priscilla Sutton, welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about all sorts of parts of your amazing life over the last 10 years or so. But what do you remember about growing up in Billawheeler? Now, from what I understand, the use of the 2,4,5-T there was pretty common as far as crop dusting.
It was, but it was such an early part of my life that we lived there that it wasn't until later in my life that I actually knew more about it. It was never really talked about until I got a little bit older and my mum started to explain to me what had happened to me and why I was the way I was. So it's sort of weird. It was never a part of my life as a really young child, and by the time it was a part of my life, we weren't living in Billawheeler.
So what do you remember about your mum actually broaching that subject? Priscilla, this is why you've got a sore leg and this is how it happened.
Well, it's quite funny because she did used to call it a sore leg or a little leg, and that's quite cute. And now as an adult, I think it's quite funny what we call parts of our bodies when we're kids, and or ailments and things like that. But she never really talked about the chemical component of what had happened to me. It was always that these things happen, you know, that I was lucky, that it could have been a number of reasons. And I think it wasn't until I was a bit older and could have perhaps handled the fact that it was a pesticide that was used that was probably what affected me, that she actually started sharing that with me, which I think I'm actually quite grateful of because it sounds quite scary. So I'm glad I didn't have that hanging over my head as a child.
Was it hard to hear it for the first time? To have it explained and this is why, and I guess open up the possibility to you in your own mind that if things had been different, then you wouldn't have this sore leg?
Oh, definitely. But it wasn't actually a daunting thing to hear. It was almost relief that that it made sense to me that, you know, that's what this chemical does to people and to babies, and more of my life and my physical side of my life made sense to me, which, I don't know.
Sort of, there's this thing about you, but nobody's really talking about it, so it's never been explained to you why it is the way it is, sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, it was quite strange when she started to talk to me about it. I think it was because there was some media attention around it and around Agent Orange in general, because the chemical is the main component of Agent Orange. So I think for her, perhaps she felt more confident with more people talking about it as well. Quite possibly it was a taboo topic as well in the late 70s, early 80s when it was happening. So, yeah.
What's the actual diagnosis? What was the condition that was affecting your leg? Was there a medical way of describing it?
Because I was born with my foot up, so my toes were pointing upwards and I had no fibula, so that's the outer bone between your knee and your ankle. So what they did to me was they broke my foot and pointed it down and fused my ankle. And basically it looked like a clubfoot. Yep. So that was the easiest term my entire life that I've always used, is that I had a clubfoot. Yep. Even though technically it wasn't a clubfoot, it just kind of looked like it. Yeah, and so there's lots of medical terms, but for me, bone condition sounds much nicer. People understand that more than, you know, a scientific word, medical term. So yeah, I've always just said bone condition. Also a bit nicer than the word deformity, which, you know, that was big when I was a kid, that I had a deformity. So.
Obviously there's varying degrees of what you had to deal with, but was it in general a hard thing to deal with all the time? Did you get used to it? Were you able to make the most of the situation?
I didn't know what it was like to run on two normal legs, you know. I didn't know what it was like to, you know, ride a bicycle with a ankle that moved, you know, on my right side, all those sorts of things. You just don't know any better. So I just got on with my life, and it's quite interesting because these days, without my old leg, I'm so much more active and mobile, which is quite interesting. So now I feel like, you know, my life has changed and I know better. So it's sort of the reverse of a lot of people. They might lose a leg and feel the loss of mobility, but I've lost my leg and gained so much mobility.
It's amazing, isn't it? Do you look at your life as pre and post amputation? Is that a way of defining
absolutely.
who you are? Yeah.
You know, when people say, oh, when did such and such get married? And I think, did I have one leg or two? And that's my big milestone in my life. If I had one or two legs, what job did I have? Did I have one leg or two? And that's where I really can work out timeframes around things when they happened, and sometimes around which prosthetic I had as well, because I've gone through a few, and there's certain periods of my life I think, oh yes, I had a polka dot leg then, that's right, you know, and yeah, it's quite funny how that happened.
So do you look back and still remember acutely what it was like before you had your leg?
Oh, absolutely. So I always had a lot of pain, which
And what type of pain? Can you describe that?
Bone pain.
Yep.
So muscle pain, that's something you can have a massage or have a break, use a heat pack. It's quite debilitating, but you know, there's things you can do to help it. Bone pain is you're stuffed. So if you've used up your energy for the day, if you've started to actually feel pain, it's very hard to recover from that quickly.
And yet you've lived, for want of a better expression, a normal life. You've done normal jobs, you've worked in bars, you've managed bands, you've been running around backstage rolling up cables and all that type of stuff, wearing the black jeans and the docks and everything else.
Yeah.
How were you able to keep going through that?
Well, I actually wore black orthopedic boots. They're not nearly as sexy as a pair of docks. I used to dream of the day of wearing docks, and after I chopped my leg off, my friends bought me a pair, which I thought was really sweet. But yeah, orthopedic boots were very much my saviour. This wonderful man, Paul, made my shoes for 11 years. And that really helped me because I limped quite badly, and I was about 2.5 inches shorter on my ankle, so I was down. And I walked like this. So he would build my boots higher and higher on this side so I would not roll as much and things like that. So the impact that my bootmaker had on my life was huge. And, you know, I can never thank him enough for how much he was able to help me keep going.
And how do you actually come to be in the state of mind where you're actually considering having a limb amputated?
My moment of clarity, or as Oprah calls it, an aha moment. I was living in Tokyo, and I was walking from the train station to my apartment, which was a really easy 20-minute walk. It's not that far, you know, it was all even footpaths, you know, easiest walk you could have. And I just couldn't do it anymore, and I just stopped in the middle of the road, started crying, and I said, that's it. And it was just, I couldn't do that 20-minute walk anymore. By the time I left Japan, I was fluent in Japanese for taxis, just to get home from the train station to my apartment every night, because it was just too much for me. And it still took me a few years after that to actually accept my decision. And then
to
process
your mind a lot,
it.
wouldn't you? Yes, I've changed my mind. I don't think I can, or maybe I should, or...
I don't think I could have, but I don't have memories of that strong apprehension. I think I just, I'm a very organised person, and I think that's what took me so long, is that I wanted to move back to Australia. I wanted to make sure I was making the right decision, consult other specialists, you know, prepare myself, save some money, you know, all the things that people in a car accident or a trauma can't do. And I just wanted to take advantage of being prepared for that big change in my life, yeah.
So tell us about that process of making the decision and going to the doctor and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, I've decided.
Well, one of the things I did was at La Trobe University in Melbourne. This is a few years ago, so I'm not sure if they still do it. They have a panel program. So it's all of these experts in different areas of medicine all come together, and they have a collection of interesting cases that they present to the panel, and they can all examine you, do tests, poke and prod you. It reminds me a little bit of House, you know, whenever I watch that and all these crazy cases come in. And so I went through that process to make sure that there was no expert in some field that could save me and my leg, so we could stay together, I guess.
Try and get as many different opinions as you can.
Instead of just this grumpy old doctor that I used to see at the Royal. So, and the only person who felt like they could do something was a physio, and I thought, hey, no, that's nice thinking, Mr. Physio, but that's never going to really help, because it's, you know, a bone thing. I've got bones missing, and it was really interesting to be surrounded by all of these experts, and they all just said, chop it off, start again, you'll be fine. And so I, in Brisbane, came back to Brisbane, and I was recommended a doctor and at the Royal Brisbane. And when I spoke to them, I said, I am so terrified doing this. I know I want to do it, but the public health system is scary. If I see you for 3 months before, who's actually going to chop my leg off on the day? Can you guarantee me that you're going to stay with me through this process?
Because you can't necessarily guarantee that, can you?
No, and they were so supportive and amazing.
Yeah.
So this fantastic orthopaedic surgeon, Dr. Pincus, and he said to me, if you need anything, you just let me know, we'll make an appointment, get you in here and talk about it. And I just remember crying through this whole relief sort of tears. And then he had my leg and he drew with a marker, where they'll chop. And it was just this really crazy appointment because I thought, oh my God, I'm doing this. I've just signed paperwork that I'm going to chop my leg off. And then I went home and had a shower and just sat there in the shower looking at my leg with marks of where they're going to chop it. And that was a really full-on moment. And it was a little bit after that because you have to wait a couple of months. I was quite persistent. I didn't wait too long. That I was feeling quite stressed out, not sort of scared, but just freaking out, I guess.
Bit of pressure.
Yeah. Chopping your leg off.
Yep.
It's a bit of a big thing.
Yep. No going back.
Yeah, so I was going to this amazing woman who's like a psychologist, hypnotherapist, and specialised in relaxation processes and things to do. So I just wanted some tools to just calm down because I was getting quite anxious. And we did this session called Talking to Your Body. And it's one of the most amazing things that's ever happened to me. So I sat back in this chair and I was hugging a bit of a cushion and she started talking to me. And I'm assuming that I became hypnotised, but I felt quite aware of where I was and what was happening. And the conversation, she led the conversation between me and my leg. And my leg told me that it was really upset with me because I had decided to chop it off, that I was abandoning her after everything we had been through and everything that she had tried to help me with.
Giving up.
I'd given up on her.
Yeah.
And she was really, really sad. And I was saying, I haven't given up on you. I just think that, you're in so much pain that we need to stop this. We're fighting for no reason. And it was this really emotional conversation that I had with my leg. And I know it makes me sound crazy, but when I eventually came to from this session, I was red from tears. The pillow was soaked with tears. I'd just been crying through it all. And I remember the conversation 100%, but I feel like I'd watched it. And from that, I made the decision to cremate my leg. So I rang the doctor up, made an appointment, went in, he said, have you changed your mind? And I said, oh, no, I've got something I want to do and I need your help. And he said, what? We can do anything. And he was so positive and supportive. And I said, I want to cremate my leg. And he went, really? Why? And he was so fascinated by it. And when I explained that for me it's a form of closure, it's I need to know where my little leg is going to end up. And I need to look after her because she's always looked after me. And he just thought that was beautiful. And he said, whatever we can do. So went off and started ringing funeral homes to get quotes on cremation, which was quite funny. It was a bit Bart Simpson. I think they all thought that I was a prank call. And I just needed to know how much it would be. And I said, it's about the size of a cat. What do you charge for a cat? So it was a really fantastic process, and the funeral home was so supportive, and I'm so glad that I did that. And I remember my doctor saying to me that he loved that idea and the process because it was quite simple to do. And for me, I know where my leg is, and she's at home with me still. And he said that that's something he would definitely recommend to people in the future that may have gone through something like I have, where they're detaching themselves from a lifelong connection.
The ability to have closure on that particular aspect of your life.
Fantastic closure.
Yeah. All right. Look, we're going to come back after the break and talk to Priscilla more about life post-amputation and the incredible life that she's created for her since then.